Welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And still recovering from Saturday night's game. Obviously, when you guys are listening to this podcast, there's another Philadelphia Union game tonight as the Union take on FC Cincinnati. And strap in. Strap in is what I would say, and hope for the best. I mean, if you need any positives, because I feel like this episode's probably going to be full of negatives. The Union are undefeated on the road this season. It's a positive, and it's not many positives you can take the last couple weeks, months, really, we should say, for the Philadelphia Union. Yeah, I know Jim Curtin, I think it's going to be said in one of the clips that we have lined up, but he said, prior to the Inter Miami game, we hadn't lost in 4 straight games. Yeah, that's true and all, but it's 3 draws. And the team's not getting wins at home. Continued Saturday night with not getting a win. And now you got to go to Cincinnati, where they're 4-2 this season at TQL Stadium, and it's a difficult place to play. Cincinnati sitting second place on 36 points, 2 behind Inter Miami, who have played 2 more games than Cincinnati. So Cincinnati, I mean, they're continuing their fine form from last season. And, as much as we praise the Union for their 3-0-5 record on the road, which is great, they're still undefeated. I look at a team like Cincinnati, 7-1-1, Inter Miami, 6-1-2. I would much rather have more wins on the road than being undefeated on the road. I'd give up some of those draws if that meant turning them into wins and maybe having a loss here or there. But as things stand, the Union remain undefeated on the road, and we'll see what happens tonight against Cincinnati. I don't know. I mean, I feel more confident, which is weird to say, with this team on the road than I do watching them at Subaru Park. And I know I've seen some fans on social media say, well, it would be so Union if they turn it around and get a win in Cincinnati, and then they get a win on Saturday against Charlotte. That would be typical Philadelphia Union. Maybe teams of the past, and first time being negative this episode, but I don't know. Can you really say that this season? It's like this team doesn't get you excited like they did in years past, and that's the crazy thing, because it's the same team. But everybody should have seen this coming, that, running it back with the same players with really no investment, it was bound to happen. As teams in MLS continue to get better and better, the Union stayed the same. And I know we've talked about that plenty of times on this podcast. I know plenty of people have been talking about that on social media. There's been other podcasts talking about that. So it's no need of me bringing up, this team just not hitting on any of their transfers, because we've talked about it so many times, I feel like, the last couple of weeks. And I'm sure you guys listen to so many other Philadelphia Union podcasts, and they're repeating the same thing. So it's like, how many more times does that stuff need to get repeated? But anyway, we have a lot of news, because last episode we had Jose Nunez on. It was 2 weeks ago, and I do apologize. It's been a little bit over 2 weeks now since you guys have got a podcast. And my plan was to do an episode last week. Didn't do it. Thought about doing maybe a recap of TST, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But ultimately, it was like, Union are going on a break. It's good for the Union. So I'll go on a break, because that's good for me too. So we have a lot of news. We'll give my thoughts on Inter Miami versus the Philadelphia Union. Go ahead and talk about the 3 stars on the night, which I feel like there really wasn't many stars on the evening for the Union. But, we'll go ahead and try to come up with 3 who I thought played well for the Union. And then no blunder of the week, because, well, there is a blunder of the week, and that is going to go to the Philadelphia Union for the performance against Inter Miami. So I don't think that's a surprise to anybody here. It's a well-deserving honor for the Union to get blunder of the week, especially you're up 2 men. And we'll get into that for a second, but enough rambling. Let's get straight into the news. All right, so the first bit of news that we'll get to is positive stuff. I'll go ahead and give my thoughts on TST. And so if you guys don't know what TST is, that's the soccer tournament. It happened last week down in Cary, North Carolina. And yeah, I'll be honest, just because like this season's been so draining, I feel like. And it wasn't even because we played a lot of games. I mean, yeah, we've played a lot of games. And last year I started feeling a little bit drained because of Leagues Cup going up to Super Park 3 times a week. And yeah, that was tiring, but I don't know. It's been, I feel like a lot of Wednesday, Saturday games, and they get so draining. And maybe some people are like, oh, yeah, you're just tired because the Union are losing and it's bound to happen. You know, people are going to start falling off because the Union aren't winning. Now that's not going to happen with me. But I don't know. I mean, just so much soccer. And I'm like, just covering week in, week out, and multiple times a week up to Super Park. I'm like, man, I'm drained. But last week, TST, and if you guys didn't watch this, it was on ESPN Plus and it was on TST's website all last week. TST, the soccer tournament, like I said, down in Cary, North Carolina, and you had so many legends of the game coming out to this games, participating. So many teams coming out to participate. You had Inter Milan, Dortmund. You had Bayern Munich. You had Sergio Aguero bringing his friends and whatnot from Argentina to participate in this tournament. You had Nani bringing his friends and just other players coming around to participate in this tournament. You had Wrexham come back to the tournament. Second year in a row that TST has hosted this event, and this year I think is by far the most successful, I would say. JJ Watt came and played with Burnley. You had Pat McAfee, who is on ESPN, does a weekly show on there, and he got a lot of great players to come out for that. Jeff Cameron, Breck Shea, Mike Barella, who's on CBS Golasso, former Columbus Crew player. And the one thing that I liked about this tournament is all the successful teams had major Arena Soccer League players on them. Last year, I think they said there was 50 MASL players playing in the tournament. This year, about 100. And what was interesting to me is TST, it's a 7v7 tournament, and you play 2 20-minute halves, and then you go into this thing called TST time. So if the score ends in regulation 2-1, then the target score time would be 3. First team to get to 3 wins. And so you would see a lot of these teams that did well in TST time were the teams with a majority of major Arena Soccer League players on that team. And that's what made Concacaf SC or FC, whatever it was, Pat McAfee's team, like so enjoyable to watch, is because when it got into target score time, they put all their MASL players out there and they really took over. And I remember just being a kid, my parents would take me down to a ton of Baltimore Blast games, going to, it's changed names so many times. I don't know. I remember it as the Royal Farms Arena, the Civic Center, people called it a while ago. I couldn't even tell you what the new name of that arena is, but I remember my parents taking us down, my sister and I, at the Blast games, I feel like every Friday night when they were playing down in Baltimore, and they play in Towson now. And since they moved to Towson, I think I've only been to one game, and they've been in Towson for 4-5 years now, I want to say. And I don't know, it's like they play on a smaller field and tickets are a little bit expensive. And it's like you have an owner that isn't the greatest. And so it's like, man, it's so hard to support this when your ticket prices are more than Union games. The owner's not investing into the team properly, and a lot of drama. You guys can look up the drama between the Blast and their former GM, who's never had any GM experience in his life before. They hired him to be a GM, and he stole money from the owner. So if you guys want to look up that information, go for it. And I don't know, when somebody loses all that kind of money because you hire the improper people, I don't feel bad for you. Yeah, it sucks that you lost your money and everything, but that's what you get for not hiring an actual general manager, somebody that has experience running a team, handling money. And yeah, it serves you right. So, long story short, haven't been to Blast games in years just because I don't like the owner. But I do still have a soft spot for indoor soccer, and just watching all these indoor soccer players like get the props, and especially again going back to Pat McAfee's team Conkefa with him doing his ESPN show down in Kerry, which was also cool. He was highlighting his team and these MASL guys and just really giving them their props. And my whole takeaway is for people that watch this tournament and maybe you didn't watch it and next year you give it a chance. Yes, I want to see soccer in general grow in America, but I want to see indoor soccer grow and get bigger. And I'm sure a lot of you guys listening, remember the Philadelphia Kicks. You guys would love to have an indoor soccer team in Philadelphia or have them come back. And I remember talking to JP Della Camera, who's a part of this commissioners group for Major Arena Soccer League. And he said, yeah, he would love to have the Philadelphia Kicks back in Philadelphia. It's about finding, the right ownership group, the right stadium situation. But yeah, he would love to see the Kicks return back to Philadelphia. And I think Major Arena Soccer League, it's got a lot of talented players. And I think they don't do the greatest job marketing. And TST did a really, really good job just marketing these players of this league. And you saw in the final Nani versus La Bombonera, who is a indoor soccer facility in Delaware, but most of their players on that team play for two teams down in Mexico that play in the MASL. And they were successful against Nani, kept a clean sheet against Nani, which is huge. So huge that they kept Nani shut out in the final. And it was just a really, really enjoyable tournament. My team, I was rooting for a quick goal with Jimmy Conrad, with Dwayne DiVisario, with Javinko, and they had a couple indoor guys on that team as well. And was wanting them to go far. And yeah, they fell short, and was definitely rooting for Conkefa too, just because Pat McAfee was giving soccer its props on his show, and you had a lot of big former U.S. stars on the team, and Jeff Cameron and Breck Shea, and especially like all the indoor guys that they had on their team. They had the top of the top players in indoor soccer playing on this team, and those guys just made it so enjoyable to get behind Conkefa and cheer those guys on. Saw a beautiful assist to Mike Grella from Pat McAfee. Beautiful finish by Mike Grella. I think probably goal of the competition, which is all in all, I mean, it was so enjoyable, and hope to get out to Cary next year. And so watching TST was definitely the highlight of my week last week, and definitely helped give me the energy that I needed, the energy that I was lacking with covering soccer. So want to give TST its props, and wanted to do a show last week, like I said, just didn't come to fruition. Wanted to try to bring on Amobi Akugo and Michael Uhre. Jose Nunez and I were going to do a show over at AET Sports across the pitch, but just going to get anything to work out. And that's the other thing too. Just so many Philadelphia Union players, or former Philadelphia Union players, I should say, played in this competition. And so it's like, whenever you get a chance to watch those guys, yeah, you want to see them again. I mean, David Akam was in here, like I said, Amobi, Michael Uhre. You had RJ Allen, who was only here for a drink of tea with the Union in 2019 from New York City. Jose Nunez did a really good job just putting a list together of all the former Philadelphia Union players that played in this competition. Chandler Hoffman, another one of those former Union players that played on Jimmy Conrad's team. So yeah, it was an enjoyable competition to watch, and I can't wait for it to come next season. And I know some people are like, well, maybe you guys should start saying this to TST. Maybe they should start their own league because more and more people would watch. But I don't know. I think that's what's unique about it, is that it's a 4-day tournament, or however long it was, and goes from morning to night. and that makes it enjoyable. I don't know how well it would do if it was its own league, but I don't know. Like I said, my hope is that more people give indoor soccer a chance because those are the players that took over this tournament. But moving on, long-winded answer. We'll talk about a whole bunch of news from Atlanta United, and that is, in case you guys missed it, they had fired manager Gonzalo Pineda. Pineda joined Atlanta United in August of 2021. Over the course of 4 seasons, he led Atlanta to a record of 34, 34, and 29 in league play. I'm just going to go over these real quick, guys, because a lot of clips to play. I think we have 6 lined up. Then Atlanta United announced this past Sunday that they have transferred forward Giakoumakis into Cruz Azul for a fee of $10 million. Atlanta paid $5.3 million to Celtic to bring Giakoumakis to Atlanta, and now they're transferring him to Cruz Azul. Atlanta have almost doubled in profit from what they paid Celtic to now what they're getting from Cruz Azul, so that's good business. 24 goals and 43 appearances in all competitions for a striker that's 29 years old and a player that's definitely in his prime of his career, but it looks like Atlanta United are trying to rebuild, retool, and to get double from what you paid for. It's really great business there by Atlanta United. Moving on to Columbus Crew, a lot of talking points for them. They have agreed a deal with Middlesbrough to send Aidan Morris to England. So Middlesbrough will pay a $4 million fee, and then they'll also have a transfer fee included in that deal. Aidan Morris, fantastic player for Columbus Crew, and it was only a matter of time before he left the Crew, a player that's been really, really good in that midfield for that team, a player that I think should, without a doubt, go to the Olympics this summer with the U.S., and so it's a good deal for the Columbus Crew. It's a good deal for Middlesbrough, and you hope that he continues to progress and then eventually becomes a staple in that midfield for the full national team. Moving on, though, Columbus Crew have acquired midfielder Dylan Chambost from Saint-Étienne in Ligue 1. They just got promoted back to the first division in France this season. He appeared in 61 matches and scored 9 goals since joining Saint-Étienne in 2022 for his second stint with the club. And then, point number 3, the Columbus Crew announced the promotion of Issa Tall to general manager. Previous president and general manager Tim Bezbashenko had accepted a position as president of Black Knight Football Club, who own Premier League side Bournemouth. And so Tim got a much-deserved promotion to a Premier League side. Has done so well with the Columbus Crew. But Issa Tall has been with Columbus Crew since 2019. And so, yeah, he's been a part of that success since 2019, winning MLS Cup in 2020 and 2023, winning Campeones Cup in 2021. And so, Columbus promoting from within, getting a guy who's going to continue to do what Tim did. Just build Columbus into a powerhouse in North America. And they've already got off to a good start, getting a good deal for Aidan Morris, bringing in a midfielder in Dylan Chambost. And most recently, they've agreed a deal with St. Louis to bring in Aziel Jackson. The deal's for $650,000 in game, with add-ons up to $900,000 in total. Jackson, 1 goal, 4 assists last season in 12 games started for St. Louis in the first season in MLS play. And he played a total of 1,120 minutes, played 25 games total. This is a huge deal. A lot of game going to St. Louis, but St. Louis, have their eyes set on a player in the Bundesliga with St. Pauli. Sorry, I forget the name of that player. And, they get a ton of game for a player that was pretty big for them last season. They thought highly of, but when you get that much money in game, it's hard to turn that down. So there are your Atlanta United, Columbus Crew updates. And finally, the Houston Dynamo are finalizing or have finalized a club record to sign Argentine forward Ezequiel Ponce from AEK Athens in Greece. Ponce, who is 27 years old, had 16 goals in 1,895 minutes this past season with Athens. All this stuff reported by Tom Bogert, who does fantastic work with The Athletic. And so that is pretty much everything I want to get you guys caught up with in case you guys weren't with the latest news around MLS. Two things, though. Yes, I've seen the reports of BJ Callahan, the assistant coach, former Philadelphia Union assistant coach as well, with the U.S. men's national team. Apparently, he's going to be appointed as the Nashville manager. Not going to speak on that yet until it's official, and I feel like just because this episode's going to be long, we would definitely be here for over an hour and 15 minutes, I feel like. And that's the same reason why I won't talk about the Julian Kranza to Feyenoord deal yet. Jim Curtin said just as much after the game that, yeah, he's no longer a Philadelphia Union player. The players, Kai Wagner, Jeremy Rafanello, both players I spoke with, both said, yeah, Kranza's gone, and they're happy for him. And so, yeah, it's official. Everybody's making it official but both clubs. And so I think Julian definitely deserves a long portion of the podcast to talk about him. And so just because we've talked so long already with all these other news segments, I don't want to go ahead and just cut either one of those topics short. So once they both become official, we'll spend some time talking about them in an upcoming podcast. But let's go ahead and talk about the Philadelphia Union versus Inter Miami game. A game that the Philadelphia Union actually scored first in the third minute with Mikael Uhre. And then they give up a goal right at the start of halftime, and then give up a goal in the 94th minute. And yeah, that stadium, Subaru Park, was not happy, and I don't blame the fans. And one thing I'll give credit to is the players for sticking around and talking. After you blow a game like that, I don't know, it's hard to want to stay back and talk to the media. And shout out to Daniel for coming up to myself and Jose Nunez and saying, yeah, who do you guys want to speak with? And so we had asked for Leon Flock, Jeremy Rafanello, and Kai Wagner, and got the chance to talk to Kai and Jeremy Rafanello. And I'll play some clips from them. And Jose Nunez got a banger of a quote from Kai Wagner, which may have caused a little bit of an issue at the club with Kai's comments, but it's a fair point by Kai Wagner, and I'm sure if you guys are on social media, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If not, maybe this is your first time you guys are going to hear those quotes. But yeah, it's disappointing how that game went Saturday night. I wrote about this in my preview article where both teams, Inter Miami and Philadelphia Union, both clubs love conceding first. I think Miami had conceded coming into this game 12 out of 18 games, and the Union were at 9 out of 16. And so the question was, which team's going to concede first? And yeah, it was, in fact, the Union. But like Miami's done all season, they've continued to show why they're the best team in MLS and getting wins after conceding first. They had 6 coming into this game, now 7 after beating the Union. And they're a fantastic team. They're a fantastic team without Messi, without Luis Suarez. And yes, they still had Sergio Busquets. Yes, they still had Jordi Alba. But this team has been so well constructed where, yeah, they can still get results without those guys. Ben Camachi, fantastic on the night. Julian Gressel gets a game-tying goal. Fantastic. Leo Capana, great player for Inter Miami. Robert Taylor, great player for Inter Miami. They still had more than enough in the attack. And they do a good job. They do a good job to, still believe and, weather the storm. How many times did we talk about the Union weathering the storm? Well, that's exactly what Inter Miami did in the first half, where they gave up the early goal. And it's a fantastic finish by Mikael Uhre after a great assist by Jacob Glesnes. And who had Jacob Glesnes getting assists in this game, let alone this whole season? If Jacob's going to get an assist, you expect it to be a header down to a player off of a corner kick, not a line-splitting pass like he played from the midfield. I mean, it's fantastic vision. And I do realize that I put out the goals breakdown video way before I did this podcast, and so a lot of you guys have probably seen the goals breakdown video by now. But it's a fantastic ball. I mean, All three midfielders for Inter Miami are around Glesnes and Busquets, Ruiz, and Ben Camachi. And Glesnes splits the line, and Mikael Uhre does a good job to get behind Christoph and Aviles. And 2 touches. It's a fantastic finish with his left foot, and it's bad goalkeeping by Jake Callender. I'm very much so aware of that. Takes a terrible angle and gives Mikael Uhre basically the whole left side of the goal to hit. I mean, all he has to do is hit it low and it's going in the back of the net because of terrible goalkeeping by Jake Callender. But it starts, with the turnover in the midfield by Inter Miami. Jacob Glesnes reacting to that, dribbling through the midfield and playing this line splitting pass. It's a great run by Mikael Uhre. And those are the type of runs that Mikael was making at Brøndby. These are the type of runs that fans have been wanting from Mikael. And I do think Mikael Uhre, we've seen the last couple of weeks since Julian's been out with injuries and now being sold, he's kind of taken on that role of being the guy in the attack. And one thing I thought was interesting about Mikael's game, this game against Inter Miami was, and I've talked about this on the podcast in the past, is, Daniel Gosling and Julian Kranza, in my opinion, are basically the same player where, yeah, they both make late runs into the box. Both players drop deep into the midfield to get on the ball. And we saw that from Mikael Uhre in this game where he's dropping deep to hold up the play. A lot of great flick ones by Mikael Uhre in this game. A lot of great combinations with Alejandro Bedoya on the right side of the field. And then you see the runs by Mikael to get in behind. It's good stuff. 2 shots this game, 1 goal. Had a shot from outside the box in the first half, that was blocked. And then as soon as he gets his first chance of the game, puts it in the back of the net. Only 2 shots for Mikael in this game. Union didn't create a ton of chances for him, but one player they did create a lot of chances for is Quinn Sullivan. And they needed to finish the chances. 2 huge chances by Quinn Sullivan. Quinn gets in behind similar to how Mikael did. And, some people said, well, Aviles fouled Quinn Sullivan. That's why he fluffed his shot. And then you have the missed clearance inside the box in the 37th minute, I want to say it was, where the ball falls to Quinn. And he tries to hit it first time and then gets blocked. That's 2 huge chances. You've got to put in the back of the net. And, okay, fine. Yes, to expect the Union to finish every one of their chances that they had is not to be expected. But there's no reason why the Union should have went into the half only up by 1 goal. It should have been, at minimum, 2-0 for the Union. And then you're feeling comfortable because now you have Miami where you want them. Now they're really going to have to come at you. But instead, it's only a 1-goal lead. And they're feeling confident. They're feeling, okay, look, we can get another goal. And they do exactly that in the 47th minute with Julian Gressel. And it's infuriating because that goal was horribly defended by Jacob Glesnes, by Kai Wagner. Both players leave their man inside the box and go on the goal line. And now leaves Julian Gressel wide open. You had Olivier Bizot defending Camachi 1v1. And I don't know if those 2 players panicked and didn't trust Olivier Bizot on that play. And they're like, you know what? Let's go ahead and get on the goal line because Olivier is going to get cooked inside the box. But instead, Ben Camachi plays the ball. It's a fast pass to Julian Gressel and does a good job to control this, bring it down where he can hit it first time. But there's no reason why he should have been that open because Kai Wagner and Jacob Glesnes both left their attackers inside the box wide open. And it's a fantastic finish by Julian Gressel. It's a huge mistake by the Union. What are you doing in that moment? And, I hear people when they say, well, look at the Union's expected XG, they should have a lot more goals than what they currently have. It's a lot of unfortunate luck. Partially. I think you're probably right. I think the Union have been unlucky at times. But I do also think that they're just not a great team. They're a good team. they're not great, and it's what happens. It's what happens when teams just continuing to improve in MLS and you do nothing. And again, I'm not going to talk about all the failed transfers. Done that plenty of times in different podcasts, and I'm sure other shows have talked about that a lot this week. So no need to repeat myself. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of mistakes from the Union this year that you haven't seen this team make in the past. Jimmy Rafanello gets to start as the attacking midfielder in this game, and he's actually a player that should have had an assist on the first chance to Quinn Sullivan. It's a beautiful through ball to Quinn Sullivan from Jeremy, gets past Busquets, and it's a tough task when you're going against Sergio Busquets. It's a great ball played in behind Quinn Sullivan, and you just can't finish it. Jeremy Rafanello definitely should have had an assist on this play. For me, it was interesting because I wasn't sure how the Union were going to play this, and they definitely did play Jeremy Rafanello as a 10. I thought maybe they would play him in a flat 4-4-2 like we saw against Portland, but no, they played him as a cam, and it's a tough task when you're tasked with man-marking Sergio Busquets, and that is what Jeremy said after the game, that was a big part of his task this game is to man-mark Sergio Busquets, always follow him around, always know where he's at, and gets a chance to create a goal. Should have had an assist, and Quinn Sullivan can't put it into the back of the net, and it's difficult for Jeremy, where I thought, it's hard for him to find the game when you have Sergio Busquets defending you, but you do get a moment in this game. You play a fantastic ball, and Quinn can't put it in the back of the net. I asked Jeremy after the game what he thought of his performance, and he thought that he had a pretty good game. And we're going to be seeing a lot of Jeremy Rafanello the next couple weeks, which is fine. Now you get to really see what your depth is really about, and it's why Jim's been getting asked prior to all the players going away for international duty. It's like, do you think maybe you should have given some of these players a chance before players went away, just to see really what you have to just ease them into the transition of eventually starting? And that wasn't really the case. But now you're throwing these guys to the fire, and it's like either sink or swim. And it's a lot of pressure on these guys, especially when the Union aren't getting the results that they needed. They're not getting the wins that they need. And I talked about it before that the Union really can't afford to lose any more games at home. If they want a chance of finishing in a good spot in the playoffs, they've got to win the remaining home games. And it doesn't happen against Inter Miami. But going back to the point I talked about, the huge missed chances by Quinn Sullivan. Jim Curtin's mentioned in the past that the Union are nervous playing at Subaru Park just because they're not getting results. And so I asked Kai Wagner after the game, I said, was there a sense of nervousness at halftime within the locker room because you guys didn't finish your chances, and that meant that Inter Miami were still in this game?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's something what we talk all the time about it. I think if we score the first goal, I think we know that we are a pretty good team. We had the chances to score the second, the third goal in the first half already, and we're just a little bit cleaner. I think Quinn has a pretty big chance where he just maybe has to put the ball in the corner, and then it's 2-0 at halftime. I think that was the problem the last couple of weeks, that maybe if we score the first goal, we missed too many chances in a row. I think after the 1-1, we had another one or two half chances, maybe from Ty, another really big chance where we just have to finish the chance. Then we lead 2-1, play with 2 men up, and then it should be an easy game for us.
And Kai's right. It should theoretically be an easier game for the Union, where you finish one of those 2 chances with Quinn Sullivan in the first half. Now you're up 2 goals. If you want to get greedy, said, yeah, maybe he should have finished all 3 of his chances. Then, yeah, the Union up 3-0, and now they're really flying. But like I said, that would be asking a lot to expect the Union to finish every single one of their chances. No team is going to finish every chance they create. Ty Baribo had a chance in the second half to make it 2-1. But for whatever reason, the Union couldn't find the back of the net. And the offense has been an issue here the last couple weeks. And maybe not even the last couple weeks, the last couple months, really. They're struggling. And I talked about this a little bit on the Battered Herons podcast. Shout out Chris and Danny for having me on the show once again. I can leave a link in the description if you guys want to go back and listen to the preview episode for that. I mean, the game's already happened, so you guys probably don't want to, but still leave a link in the description if you guys want to check that out. Thank you guys so much. But you look, 1 goal against Inter Miami, 2 goals against Montreal. All right, Montreal were down a man when you guys scored 2 goals. Then you go to the game before that. Toronto, no goals. You go to Charlotte, no goals. You beat New England, 3 goals, but they were down a man majority of that game. New York City, only 1 goal. And so New York City happened May 15th. Now we're a month removed, a little bit over a month removed since that game. And yeah, the Union have really struggled to find the back of the net to really finish these chances. They're creating chances, but the ball's not falling in the back of the net. And yeah, Kai said it. Yeah, there was nervousness. Yeah, we thought about that. Didn't take our chances. And of course, that leaves Inter Miami still in this game. And it's very concerning where Inter Miami shouldn't have been in this game because the Union were the better team in the first half. There's no denying that. And the Union get gifted 2 red cards in the second half, and we'll talk more specifically on that here in a bit. It's crazy, man. It's really crazy that they can't finish their chances. It's unbelievable. It really is. And you're going to have to try to find ways to finish your chances without Julian Kranzler, your best striker, your best finisher. Yeah, it's going to be difficult for this team. And then I asked Jeremy Rafanello after the game, explain what's going on at home and away. You guys are undefeated on the road, but for whatever reason, you guys just cannot win games at home.
It's definitely not easy to I would say to, say what's the trick of why don't you guys just carry over to home? And it's just we wish we could, but I think that there's more of a sort of intensity when we are away, especially this season, that, we're not going to take anything lightly, and, we're going to almost treat every stadium like it's our home stadium. I mean, granted, the results on our home stadium is not showing, but I think very, very soon it'll be a quick turnaround and we'll get things rolling again.
All right, so my main takeaway from that was that Jeremy said, there's more intensity from us on the road than it is at home. And so then the Union have to find a way to bring that intensity that they have on the road with them at Subaru Park. And Kai admitted it, that, yeah, this team was nervous at halftime. Jim Curtin has admitted it multiple times in press conferences that this team is nervous at home. And I get it. That's what happens when you're not winning games at home and you're getting booed by the fans, which the fans definitely have every right to boo the team. Which, by the way, I got to address something real quick. I did screen record this comment that I got left on Spotify. I'm going to go ahead and call out this person by name. Jacob Strauser 1 is the username on Spotify. He said, "How are you mad at fans for telling the Union to wake up? Take your rose-colored glasses off. I want a bad atmosphere when we're sucking." Well, Jacob, I don't think I have any rose-colored glasses on. My issue, specifically, what you're talking about, is when the Union were saying, wake the F up, 50 seconds into the game against Montreal when they conceded. My issue is there is 89 minutes plus stoppage time to be played. And you're saying for the Union to wake up? There is plenty of time left in this game. The players don't need to be reminded to wake up. The game just started. There is plenty of time to get a goal. And we saw the Union actually score 2 goals. And then, of course, they get the red card with Jack Elliott. And then they concede right away. But there's no need for the fans to be saying, wake the F up. Or, my issue too is, hey, Union, we want 3 points. Like, the players know that. There is no need to chant, "Hey, Union, we want 3 points. Hey, Union, wake the F up." There's no need for it. You can boo, you can do whatever you want. But I just think that there's a time and a place. And I've said it before. I said it on the Better Herons podcast, and there's plenty of examples of this, where you look in the playoffs, the Union have conceded first, and they're not chanting, "Hey, Union, wake the F up." They're not chanting, "Hey, Union, we want all 3 points." They're getting louder. They're getting behind the team, encouraging them. And I just think that, "Hey, Union, we want all 3 points. Hey, Union, wake the F up." I think that's so corny. It's not going to motivate the players. Like, what are we doing here? And I get it that the playoffs are different than the regular season, which then brings up the argument that, okay, well, the regular season really doesn't mean that much because anything can happen in the playoffs. And the fans know that it's win or go home in the playoffs. And so that's why they're being encouraging to this team in the playoffs. I get that 100%. But when you're a team that's only won 1 game at home this season, you have 5 losses, which, by the way, you haven't had more than 5 losses since 2018, where the Union lost 6 at home. It's insane that this team has 5 losses at home. Okay, if they had 5 losses on the road, that's probably to be expected because it's difficult to go away and get results on the road. 5 losses at Subaru Park, it's unbelievable. And yes, you can be disappointed with how the Union are playing, and plenty of fans are disappointed. And there was lots of boos after the game, and after the Union conceded in the 94th minute, fans have left, and I was a little bit surprised that the boos weren't as loud as they were, but I think a good majority of that is because fans left as soon as the Union conceded. And another thing we actually didn't even get into, and if I did, we'd be here forever, with Kevin Durant, one of the minority owners with Union, was getting in with one of the Union fans on social media, going back and forth, where, fans are definitely dissatisfied with this team not investing with what we've seen. And Kevin Durant's like, true fans stick it out through the tough times. And it's like, really? Like, that's the angle that we're going with? And then this fan's talking about, how can you be saying that when it's got tough for you, when you've been at multiple different NBA teams, you go and request a trade because you don't want to stick it out. And it's rich coming from you, Kevin. Why he brought up, what Kevin does in the NBA, I don't know. Maybe that was a little bit of a cheap shot, but also not cool, like, as a minority owner, calling out fans, saying, "Oh, you're not a true fan if you don't stick this out." No, I don't think that's the case at all. And yeah, you can do whatever you want, but it doesn't change my opinion that I think that it's corny that fans are yelling, "Hey, Union, wake the F up," when, that's not the case in the playoffs. And yes, I do realize that it was the case in 2019, where the Union fans, myself included, did that at halftime of the New York Red Bulls versus Union game. The Union are down 3-1 at halftime. And it is very well deserved at halftime. But during the game, like, what are we doing? Like, the players know it. And Jim Curtin even talked about, that's exactly what we needed. Was that wake-up call, knowing that the fans were dissatisfied with how we were playing at the half. And then eventually, led to the Union having a come-from-behind victory, 4-3 win against New York Red Bulls, getting their first playoff victory. But you want a bad atmosphere at Subaru Park. It's going to be great. It's how you help get results. That is how you help get results at Subaru Park, not being behind the players. It's great. Fans are upset with the front office, with the ownership group, not so much the players. So I don't know how to address you, Jacob. Nothing personal. And, if you leave a comment on the show, so be it. And then we got to decide, do we keep going back and forth where I comment every time you comment, or do you eventually just stop commenting? So we'll see. No offense, but had to defend myself. I don't think I have rose-colored glasses on whatsoever, because I'm very aware. Once I speak into this mic and put it out there on the internet, it's forever. And so I'm not going to back down for what I said, calling out the fan base. I'm not. But I do think I have a right to defend what I've said. So there's your shout out, Jacob, and all you people listening are like, I didn't even know that was the case. Well, now you do. So where were we? We were talking about the home form versus the away form, I believe it was. And yeah, I mean, it's just interesting how this team plays with more intensity on the road. They've got to find out how to bring that intensity to Subaru Park. And maybe part of that's because they feel like they're letting down the fans at home. It's probably part of it, but it's like, you guys scored the first goal against Inter Miami. You had chances. And you guys knew that it was going to come back and bite you in the butt. And that's exactly what it did. What about the formation? So we talked about Jim playing Jeremy Rafanello at the base of the diamond, staying with 4-4-2 diamond formation. But I don't know if you guys notice this, and I think you guys are smart people. You guys definitely notice this. Every time the Union switch or try to switch formations, whether it be mid-game or whether it be starting in a different formation, like there's a lot of confusion. A lot of confusion. In the 81st minute, Ty Baribo enters for Olivier Bizo. And so you put Quinn Sullivan as a right wing back. Baribo goes to the 10. Mikael Uhre and Chris Donovan are your two strikers up top. Which, by the way, the Union had a chance in the, I forget what minute it was. God, maybe in the 80-ish minute. It was a 5-on-3. You had Chris Donovan on the left side of the field, who's going to try to send it across. He doesn't, because Regan does a good job taking away the crossing angle. Chris Donovan waited way too long, but that's exactly it. That is not who you want out on the wing. You want Chris Donovan inside the middle of the field, getting on the end of the headers, not sending in the crosses. And when I saw it, I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, you do a good job to break and hit on the counterattack, but one of the players that you least want on the ball right now is the player that's on the ball. And the Union botch it. They botch a 5-on-3. And we've seen a lot of that too, I feel like, this season, where the Union just really haven't been like they've been in the past on the counterattack. It's a lot of 4-on-3 opportunities, 3-on-2s, 5-on-3, which you should never mess up a 5-on-3. And the Union just haven't been able to capitalize on these counterattacks. And like I said, I mean, there just seems to be a lot of confusion when the Union play in a different formation or when they switch during the game to a different formation. And so, yeah, it was interesting seeing Ty Baribo go to the 10, Quinn Sullivan now going as a right wing back, which means that your three in the back are Nate Harriel, Jacob Glesnes, and Kai Wagner. Kai Wagner is a player that always wants to push for it. And so then how that really leaves you with Jacob Glesnes and Nate Harriel, and Ty Baribo is definitely not a 10. And I think he showed that, where, he was a little bit confused, where, he needed to line up, get on the ball. And I am aware too that part of the reason why the formation will look as bad as it did is because, especially when you go up by two men, Miami are now sitting every single player behind the ball. And this podcast, I just looked at the time. Like, we have spent a lot of time talking about this. A lot of thoughts I realized that I have on this game. But when Miami's sitting 9 men behind the ball, yeah, that's going to be difficult to break down, and the formation's going to look all confusing. But how many times have we seen the Union playing the 5-3-2, 3-5-2, whatever you want to call it, and there's been confusion between the center backs, between the defensive midfielder, a lot of confusion. And I don't even know what to call this formation when you had tie at the 10. 3-5-2 maybe. I don't know. It was so confusing. But you played 16 minutes up a man. And then after those 16 minutes, then into Miami, go down 2 men. And so you play 17 minutes up 2 players. And you can't capitalize. And Kai Wagner said after the game, sometimes that's actually more difficult than playing against a team that has 11 players because they're sitting deep, and that's very, very hard to break down. But there is no excuses why you're up a man. Well, you're up 2 men at home, and you can't get a second goal. You give up the game-winning goal to, by the way, I wish I would have known this during the game or after the game, that Leo Afonso used to be in the Union's academy. That's the player who scored the game-winning goal for Inter Miami. So, of course, it's so Union, right? But you get hit on the counterattack. Jack McGlynn plays a terrible ball, and Miami does a good job to break. Leaves Jacob Glensnes in a 2v1 situation, and Leo Afonso just passes by Jacob Glensnes by ease. And yeah, Jacob's not had the greatest of seasons this year for the Union. And he's definitely regressed a lot this year, a lot of mistakes. And I know I've seen people online say in the past, maybe it's because of his groin injury that he had last year. Maybe he's not fully recovered, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, Glensnes definitely does look a step slower, and he was never the fastest center back, but he just gets beat way too easily 1v1. And yes, the Union leave him out there too dry. And when you turn the ball over inside Miami's half, you've got to foul in that situation, whether you're Nate Harriel, whether you're Jack McGlynn. You've got to foul. And I know it's not ideal to foul when you're attacking, but when you have literally everybody push up but Jacob Glensnes, you are leaving him out to dry. And that's exactly what happened. And it's a botched play by the Union, but it's inexcusable why you don't get a goal up 2 men. It's I've never seen anything like it. And people have said, this is the worst loss, one of the worst losses ever in the Union's history. And it's crazy because a lot of these players that were on the field were the same players that people were saying this is the greatest Union team ever in 2022, which it is, or was. But just a lot of mistakes this season from these guys. A lot of mistakes. And it's hard. It's hard to accept. And Alejandro Bedoya goes off in the 52nd minute because of a quad injury. Jim Curtin said in his press conference leading up to the Cincinnati game that Bedoya would be out for a few weeks. It's a huge blow, but it's a chance for Jesus Bueno now to step up. And I expect, he'll definitely take his opportunities for whatever reason. He's been in the doghouse this year for Jim Curtin after impressing last year, gets that new contract after playing well in Leagues Cup. And we haven't seen Jesus feature a lot this season. Now you're down another player after you're missing so many players because of international duty. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this team's just, it's like you live and die by the 4-4-2. It's like we play it, and that's all we know. We try to play something else, and we're confused where we need to be. And I do think it's time to say, all right, moving forward, do we really need to be playing with 2 strikers when Julian Kranz is not here anymore? Maybe we switch to a 4-3-3. Maybe we switch to a 4-2-3-1. I don't know. But the strikers the Union do have, I'm not confident that they'd be able to play the diamond anymore. I mean, look, you can argue even with Julian Kranz that the diamond just seemed not to be working anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see what Jim Curtin does against Cincinnati. I'm sure he'll go with the diamond still. Because why not? But we're not going to do 3 stars because I don't think there was 3 players that were deserving. Mikael Uhre, he was good, I thought. Kai Wagner, he was decent. But then when you get into that third player, not good. So because we do have 4 more clips to play, and these are probably the most important clips, we'll go ahead and just play them, give my thoughts, and end the podcast because this is definitely going over an hour. So my apologies if you guys were hoping this wasn't going to be the case. It was definitely the case. But we had Jim Curtin once again after the game sounding off, saying, the only players that are going to get us through this mess are the players that are currently here. It's just going to be us. And it's disappointing to Union fans. It's disappointing for the players as well. But here's Jim Curtin speaking about, it's only going to be us once again.
When it happens this much and you dig this deep of a hole, it hurts. And again, we set ourselves up in a bad way. We're at the midway point, though. That's the reality of things. And again, I said it to the guys before kickoff. We're the only ones that are going to get us out of this. Coming into this game, we're 1-0-3 and hadn't lost. And it felt like we lost every game. So tonight hurts, but we're the only people that are going to be able to get us out of it. The group that's in that locker room, and I think the players understand that and know that. And we have to pick ourselves up quickly and go again against Cincinnati.
So Jim had said the same thing after the New York City game. That's only going to be us, and that's what we know. And it's disappointing. It is so disappointing to hear that. When I said it at the beginning of the show, you watch other teams around MLS continuing to get better, continuing to improve their rosters, and they know what it takes. They know what it takes to get to MLS Cup. And the Union, it really does sound like, don't expect any investment this summertime. And because of that, you see a lot of fans say, they're going to give up the season tickets. You see a lot of fans just say they're not going to show up to games anymore. Whatever the case may be, fans are not happy. And I do think that's part of the reason why this one Union fan decided to have a go at Kevin Durant and let him know how he feels. And we'll see, if the fans have anything in store for in-game atmospheres. Did they stage a walkout? Who knows? But Jim Curtin once again doubling down. And so Kai Wagner was asked after the game by Jose Nunez, do you feel like this team needs more players? Because he did previously say they do. On The Dupe, which is the Union's official podcast with Sage Hurley, Kai Wagner did say he believes the team needs more players. Kai, once again, doubling down.
Bad signs. I'm completely honest. I think we should see now that we have to invest in the team. We need players who can help us. We should not just believe if our young guys can come up and straight play and everybody just saying, okay, we have young guys coming up now, they should help us. It's not how it is. This league is extremely hard to play at. You see in other teams, they invest in other players, and it don't have to be million dollar players. It's like players who just have different profiles, different styles. In my opinion, we need a guy with pace. We don't have a guy with pace on the whole pitch. We need now Julian is gone. We need a real finisher in front of the goal. It's just little margins what we just have to see. I think it's not just the team. I think our also on front office has to see now that we need to invest in the team. That's my honest opinion.
Andre has voiced this pretty loudly in terms of his disdain maybe with the investment on the team. Is this something that you've been, I think you've done it on the podcast with Sage, but also has this something you voiced to Jim, to other leaders within the club to maybe invest more on the players?
I think we talk all the time about it. I think just not in the locker room. I think everybody sees it. The fan base sees it. We see it. I think if that's not clear and honest, that everybody should know from the front office too, we should go out now and get new players, because we see now that we clear underrated in the moment. believe me, we try everything. The players who we have, everybody wants to get everything all the time on the pitch. Everybody wants to play. We have amazing training sessions all the time. Believe me, it's like really good. Like sometimes I'm really impressed. It's like way better than last year. But in the moments, it's just the small margins what we miss, and just like the chances that we don't finish in the moment. And yeah, just have to go back somehow to winning.
Yeah, what a soundbite by Kai Wagner. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all in what he said. That this team's trying. They are trying as hard as they can. That they've had good training sessions. It's just not getting done on the field. And Jeremy Rafanello said the same thing to me that the team is training really good. But then for whatever reason, the results just aren't there during the games. And Kai Wagner, I mean, he's a player that got paid. He got his money in the offseason. He said in the past that, the union need to invest in more players. Now he doubles down once again. And was that a shot at Mikael Uhre saying, we don't have a player on the whole pitch that has pace, and now that Julian's gone, we don't have a finisher in front of the net? It does honestly seem like it's a shot fired at Mikael Uhre, which one, I do think Mikael's pretty fast, and two, had one shot on target, one goal. He's pretty clinical. And I don't know if Kai meant to take that shot at Mikael Uhre, but that's definitely what he did. And I don't know. I mean, the players keep saying that this locker room's together. There's no tension within the locker room. They all believe in one another. But there's comments from Kai Wagner. Are we starting to see maybe a little bit of a fractured locker room? It's hard for me to say. I think where there's disconnect and where there's anger is between the players and the front office. I think these fans are totally behind Jim Curtin. I don't think these players have a problem with Jim at all. It's wanting the team to invest, and I'm going to bring it up. And these players know that the team, yes, they invested in this wintertime, bringing in a couple new players. They invested in the summertime. They invested the winter before that. These players, specifically the union's best players, know that the last couple transfer windows haven't been great. That relying on homegrown players isn't going to get it done. They need more and better players. And Kai Wagner, I'm sure, is not the only. I mean, he said it. The players talk about it. Just they won't all go on record about it. Which, props to Kai for having the balls to actually say this. And Andre Blake's actually been on record too saying something similar. I believe it was to ESPN during the preseason. He echoed that, look, the team didn't do enough, in his opinion, that they probably should have done more investing into the squad. More on that here in a second. And so I said, you know what? Kai Wagner went on record and has now said this twice. Andre Blake's been on record and said this before. Will Jeremy Rafanello echo those same statements?
I would say I'm not the guy to comment on that stuff. I'm just going to keep on doing the homegrown role.
Yeah, Jeremy knows his place. Well done. Well done, Jeremy Rafanello, for saying, yep, nope, I'm not getting in trouble for these comments. I will let other players speak to them, and I'll continue to do the homegrown role, which is shut up, do my job once I'm called upon, and that's all I do. And he was a good kid. It was my first time ever talking to Jeremy Rafanello, and maybe someone who I should try to get onto the podcast. I know he did the podcast with Sage, and that was a really, really good episode. But he's a really, really respectable kid, and give a lot of good answers. And of course, I didn't play them all here, but I enjoyed my conversation with Jeremy, and I was expecting that answer from him. And in all honesty, I was probably expecting Kai to say something similar, but I don't know. Kai Wagner is a guy who never shies away from his opinion. He'll let it be known. And which leads me to this next clip. Jim Curtin was asked Tuesday his thoughts on Kai Wagner's comments after the game to Jose.
Was frustrated. Kai's a top player and has been at the club for a while. He also knows speaking publicly like that doesn't really help anybody. So we'll have some discussions. I've had some discussions with Kai. But again, after the loss against Miami, the way that we lose the game, I think everybody's emotions are high. And I think he spoke out of turn, and that stuff should stay in the locker room, as you guys all know.
Yeah, on one hand, I mean, of course, as a head coach, you want that stuff to stay in-house. But my issue is Jim Curtin has called out ownership without saying it directly like Kai Wagner did. Well, Andre Blake has done it publicly with ESPN. Like I said, I believe it was. Andre also said it this year publicly to Jose Nunez during CONCACAF Champions Cup, saying, we'll see, if we made enough investments. Time will tell. Time will tell. And time is telling us they have absolutely not done enough. And yeah, it sucks that, Kai Wagner probably got in a little bit of trouble from Jim Curtin. But I don't blame Kai. No, he's saying what all the other players think. No, he said that we talk about this as a team. And if anything, this is going to get the fans behind the players even more. Hey, look, the players feel the same way as us. We want more investment into this team. And yes, speaking publicly doesn't help the players in the front office. And I'm sure part of it is, Kai got his money, so he feels like he's able to speak publicly how he feels. But something has to be done. And calling out your teammates, calling out the front office, probably won't help a lot. But what it does do is tell the fans, hey, look, we feel the same exact way as you. And yes, the fans are disappointed that the results aren't there. And again, I don't think the fans are mad at the players. They're mad at the ownership. And last thing I'll leave you guys with, because we're already at an hour and 11 minutes, is a lot of these fans have only come on board within the last couple of years once the Union started winning. And so they don't remember the dark days of 2013, 2014, when things were really, really rough with this team. And so for a lot of fans, this is the first time that they've had this rough of a spell watching the Union. And so it's going to be interesting to see, how do those fans, how do you guys, I'm sure some of you guys are listening to the podcast that have just come on board. How do you guys protest? How do you guys get your message across to the front office that you're dissatisfied with the investment into this team? And so I do think, because this is the first time we've seen a lot of these fans go through something like this, they're not really sure how to react. And some of the OGs that have been there since the beginning are like, we've been through this before. And yes, it's the same common factor, same owner. And nothing changed before with spending, and nothing's going to change again. We got fortunate that we hired Ernst Tanner, and he hit on a lot of those transfers early on, and that's what helped this team be successful. But now we're not hitting on those transfers, and we'll see where we go from here. So it's interesting times for the Union. We'll see what happens tonight against Cincinnati. Hopefully the Union come away with a win. I'll be appearing on Across the Pitch after the game if you guys want to check that out. Do we do a show after the Cincinnati talking about the free kick exclusively? Yeah, I think we do. But if you guys want to watch live reactions from myself, Jose Nunez, Mike Barrera, will be live on AAT Sports Across the Pitch, and we'll be sure to give you guys the links on social media so you guys can come and check that out and hopefully enjoy a union win with us. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast of The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/freekickpod. Check out the Substack, thefreekick.substack.com. And yeah, I appreciate you guys for staying this long for a very, very long episode. But there was a lot to talk about, a lot of clips to be played, and I could have played a lot more, but I didn't because we'd probably push 2 hours, and who needs a 2-hour podcast? So with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.